Good day, everybody. It's a cloudy and cold day here in Kunshan, China, where I live and work and teach. And recently I was invited to give a talk about the White Album to the Critical Music Club run by my friend Brian Offenther, otherwise known as DJ Bo. We've had a lot of collaborations over the years, and so I gladly accepted because I love the White Album. It's one of my favorite Beatles albums. And I was given the rather challenging task of arguing that the White Album is the greatest Beatles album. Of course, this is very subjective, as I say in my other video, which you can watch, where I talk about the White Album. But over the course of preparing for this talk with the Critical Music Club, I came up with a set of questions to test people's knowledge about the White Album. I didn't really get to use the full quiz. I did get to ask a few of the questions, but I thought that rather than letting this little quiz go to waste, I would just put it out there on YouTube land and give you a chance to see how you do. If you're a fan of the White Album, or if you're new to the White Album and want to know more, maybe these questions will make you more curious and make you listen more to the album. I think it's well worth listening to the album in its entirety. I know that I am, not the only one who loves the White Album, but there are also a lot of, we could say, detractors, people who think some of the cuts in the White Album are wonderful and others they don't need to listen to anymore. But I think they're all great. And part of it is because I grew up with the White Album when I was a kid, about, I would say, 8 years old. I got this album. My grandfather gave it to me as a gift, Grandpa Stan. I remember going to the record store in the Washington, D.C. area where they lived, and him buying this album for me. I guess I must have requested it. As you can see, it's got that mysterious white cover, very minimalist. You open it up and it has the list of songs plus the famous photos of the Beatles at that stage. This is 1968. I guess post Rishikesh, and you can see the albums themselves are starting to kind of fall out. I should probably repair this. But then behind me, as you've probably noticed already, is a poster. This poster is an insert in the album, and there are just a lot of photos. I think the poster does a good job of representing kind of the zeitgeist of this album, because it shows them at their most vulnerable. Paul taking a bath. Here's John naked with Yoko. John is on the bed on the phone. That would become, John and Yoko in bed would become a very kind of iconic image of the late 1960s as well. Wonderful set of photos. There's Brian Epstein, who had already passed away at that point. Their manager, Ringo, and Maureen, his then wife. So you can spend a lot of time just looking at this poster, the little naughty little naked drawing of John and Yoko, and of course, that kind of anticipated the cover of their album Two Virgins. So it's a wonderful little insert. I think I had this poster on the wall of my bedroom when I was, preteen, teenager. I'm pretty sure I remember that. It's all kind of dog-eared. Too bad I didn't get it framed or anything at that point. Maybe I will. Maybe I should do that. Anyway, let's get back to the quiz. So this is a way to test your knowledge. If you can get all these answers right, you are definitely a White Album fanatic. If you get most of them right, you're pretty familiar with the White Album and the stories behind the making of the songs. If you get some of them right, well, at least you've listened to the White Album a few times. And if you get none of them right, then of course, you just don't know anything about the White Album and have probably never really listened to it in its entirety. But since you're watching this video, you're probably curious about learning more. So let's go. Right, so as I go through these questions, I'm not going to give you the answers until the end. So my advice is try not to cheat. Don't use Google. Don't use AI. Just use your own memory and your own knowledge. If you don't know it, you don't know it. But you will have the answers at the end. So ready, steady, go. Question 1. Which song's title comes from a saying in the Yoruba language? Question number 2. After which song does Ringo complain, "I got blisters on my fingers"? Question 3. Which song was inspired by a scandal connected to the actress Mia Farrow? Question 4. Which song was composed for her sister? Question 5. Which Beach Boy contributed to which song, and what was his contribution? Question 6. How many Beatles songs does John reference in the song Glass Onion, and how many are Paul songs? Question 7. The name Glass Onion was originally meant to be the name of a band on Apple Records. What name did the band eventually take? Question 8. Who was the first woman to contribute a lead line to a Beatles song? What was the song, and what was the line? Question 9. During the recording of the White Album, Ringo decided to leave the band for a while. When he returned, what special gesture did the band members undertake to make him feel welcome again? Question 10. Which song on the White Album was inspired by the Chinese classic I Ching? Question 11. Which song was inspired by a magazine cover and in turn inspired Radiohead to make Paranoid Android? Question 12. Which song used 14 musicians, including violins, violas, cellos, trumpet, and flugelhorn? Question 13. In which song does a historic figure get called a stupid git? And who is that figure? Question 14. Which song's music was inspired by Bach, while the lyrics were inspired by M.L. King's assassination? Question 15. Which song inadvertently inspired a gruesome murder ritual using forks and knives? Question 16. How many songs on the White Album reference animals in one way or other, and what are they? Question 17. Which song started out with John, Paul, and Donovan in Rishikesh riffing about a guy named Sassoon? Bonus question. How did they simulate the gunshot on this track? Question 18. Which song was enhanced with violin played by the Beatles' former booking agent, Jack Fallon? Question 19. Which song was inspired by the sight in Rishikesh of two monkeys mating? Question 20. Who is John singing about in the song Julia? Bonus question. How many times in a row does John sing the same note in this song? It's question 21. Which song references a Bob Dylan song? What's the Dylan song? And why is the reference appropriate? Question 22. Which song inspired by a lecture by the Maharishi was accompanied by the rhythm of Paul hitting his copy of the Song of Hiawatha by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow? Question 23. Which song title contains a direct reference to John's heroin habit and why? Question 24. Which song was invigorated by George's energetic guitar work and by Paul vigorously whacking a fireman's bell? Question 25. Which song was the product of a vicious rumor started by Magic Alex in Rishikesh? Bonus question. How many takes did they do to get the song down? Question 26. Which song inspired by The Who's I Can See for Miles found the four members of the band out of their heads as they recorded through the night? Question 27. We all know that Bob Dylan's double album Blonde on Blonde inspired the Beatles to do the same. Which song on the White Album was inspired by the final track of Bob Dylan's double album? Question 28. Which song ends with the serendipitous sound of a bottle of Blue Nun wine rattling on top of a Leslie speaker? Question 29. Which songs on the White Album were inspired or influenced by George's good friend, Eric Clapton? Question 30. Which song on the White Album ends with a mysterious incantation? Can you take me back where I came from? Okay, and those are the 30 questions. So now you can see how you did. I'm going to give you the answers now. Answer to question 1. Obladi oblada. Answer to question 2. Helter Skelter. Answer to question 3. Sexy Sadie. Answer to question 4. Dear Prudence. Answer to question 5. Mike Love. Back in the USSR, and it was the idea to use the different regions and sing about the women. Answer to question 6. 5 songs in total, and 3 were Paul songs. Answer to question 7. Badfinger. Answer to question 8. Not When He Looked So Fierce, sung by Yoko Ono in Bungalow Bill. Answer to question 9. They laid flowers on his drum kit. Answer to question 10. Well, my guitar gently weeps. Answer to question 11. Happiness is a warm gun. Answer to question 12. Martha, my dear. Answer to question 13. I'm so tired. Answer to question 14. Blackbird. Bonus question. What model of guitar was Paul playing? Oh, maybe I didn't ask that, but bonus question. What model of guitar was Paul playing? Answer. A Martin D28. Answer to question 15. Piggies. Answer to question 16. There are 7 songs that reference animals. Blackbird, Rocky Raccoon, Piggies, Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except Me and My Monkey, Martha, My Dear, which references Paul's sheepdog, Martha. That's a bit of a trick question. The continuing story of Bungalow Bill references a tiger and an elephant. And Glass Onion references a walrus. Answer to question 17. Rocky Raccoon. Bonus question. Ringo hit the snare drum. Answer to question 18. Don't Pass Me By. Answer to question 19. Why don't we do it in the road? Answer to question 20. Julia. His mother, and Yoko Ono, who is the ocean child, and perhaps even the silent cloud. Answer to question 21. Your Blues references Ballad of a Thin Man, which connects to the theme of loneliness and alienation. Answer to question 22. Mother Nature's Son. Answer to question 23. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. Monkey on your back was a jazz slang for heroin habit. 24. Answer to 24. Also the same song. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. Answer to question 25. Sexy Sadie. I don't remember the exact number, but it took over 100 takes. Answer to question 26. Helter Skelter. Answer to question 27. Long, long, long. Answer to question 28. Same. Long, long, long. Answer to question 29. Well, My Guitar Gently Weeps, where Clapton plays the solo on the track. And Savoy Truffle, because of Eric Clapton's addiction to sweets and to chocolate boxes. Answer to question 30. Cry Baby Cry. As you see, most of these questions were in order of the tracks on the album, so if you figured that out, you could have had a slightly easier time finding the answers to these questions. A lot of this information that I got in order to put together the quiz comes from the book All the Songs, the Beatles version, which contains a lot of very interesting information about every song that they recorded during their career. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Please comment if you liked this quiz. I'd be curious to know how you did on it. If you think I made any mistakes, let me know. I'm happy to stand corrected. Have a good time, and please don't forget to listen to the White Album in its entirety. Thank you.